Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Russ Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it is Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast presented by DraftKings. I actually only had one Daddy Soda all weekend. It was when I got home Saturday night after like 40 hours of working the 3 days for the draft for the Philadelphia Eagles and not a whole lot of sleep. I had a nice double IPA, delicious, went to bed. Whew, I needed that. Also, I need to talk with my guy, Emory Hunt, here on the College Draft Podcast. We've been talking about all season. We talked about the best players in the biggest games, and Emory started to pick those games against the spread, which we'll do again this year. And we went through every position. You know, it's got to be – I mean, it's fun for me, Emory. I love it. The draft's one of my favorite times of the year. But especially for you that actually puts in all the work and evaluates all these guys, draft must be crazy for you.
It really is, man. It is so much fun, and it's always good to see where these guys end up. And, you know, because fans want instant reaction, but it is a process, and you have to let it play out. So, yeah, you may have this player as your number 2 running back, right? But he may go in the 3rd round. It's not – I don't care where they go. I am most concerned about how well they play. So it's always good to see where they go because the fit matters more so to helping your evaluation reach its potential. So I'm excited to see, 1, where they go, and 2, how it all plays out.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point that I want to bring up. You know, people look at it like anytime a player has success, it was a good pick. Any time a player does not have success, it was a bad pick. I think that that's unfair to scouts and even draft experts like you. There are so many factors. Like, what team did he go to? How'd they use him? How much patience did they have with him? Who's coaching him? Who's his position coach? Who's ahead of him on the depth chart? And then even stuff we could never possibly know. Like, you know, does he have a bad family life? Did something happen with his girlfriend? Like there's just so many factors that go into whether or not these guys end up being successful NFL players or not. The one thing that bothers me, I feel like, Emory, is people are so simplistic with it. You know, like if the guy ends up, it was a good pick, guy ends up, it was a bad pick. There's other factors there. There could be guys end up having success, and maybe it wasn't a great pick, but it worked out. And there could be guys that end up not working out at all, and it was a great pick, but he got bad coaching, was in a crappy situation. He had something that bad happened on his personal life. He got the money and didn't care anymore. Like, there's just a lot of factors.
Way too many factors. And you see it in college football as well. You know, college football is mostly a development issue. And also, it's a college issue because you get a guy that's 18 coming out of high school, and this is his first time away from home in college where you are in a whole new world. It's like you're an adult for the first time in a strange new land. So you don't know how this person is going to deal with that aspect of going to class every day and doing a lot of things on their own. In the NFL is like, man, okay, we drafted a guy and maybe this guy has a developmental plan and maybe the other guy doesn't have a developmental plan and they expect him to come in right away, or maybe the coach is on the hot seat or the GM is on the hot seat and it kind of stunts the growth of what this guy was picked to do. And therefore it may look like a miss, but no, it's just a situational issue. Rarely it's a talent issue. You never see someone just flame out because they just can't play. It's 9 times out of 10 a developmental issue or a situational issue.
By the way, I know I said it, but I'll say it again. That is Emory Hunt at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. And I will tell you this, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to get his 2021 draft guide now that you know which of these guys are on your team or your division rivals team and read about them. I mean, it's worth it for the money. Footballgameplan.com/2021 draft guide. And it's kind of cool to compare Emory's rankings to where the guys went and then see how they end up doing over the years. So encourage you to do that. I do want to mention I had Greg Cosell on today's Ross Tucker Football podcast because I had to get his thoughts on some of these day 2 quarterback fits, Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, and get his thoughts on those guys. So certainly if you're into this stuff, and I know a lot of you are, check out today's Ross Tucker Football podcast. You can always follow me at Ross Tucker NFL. You can follow all of our shows at Ross Tucker Pod. We are going to go team by team, division by division, starting next week. Because what's the heck the point of putting all this time into the draft and then actually talking about the picks these teams made? So, but we're going to do that next week. Today is just kind of Emory and I just chatting, just shooting the bull with some of our thoughts and takeaways from the NFL draft. Just an open conversation, back and forth. And I guess I'll start with that, Emory. You know, what if I said to you, what'd you think of the draft? By the way, how was it being on set for CBS HQ?
It was awesome, man. Like you really have to be on from 11. We were on from 11 to 8 p.m. Every hour on the hour, and just instant reaction. By the last hour, we're doing recaps and grades on the teams by conference or by division. So it was excellent. You deal, and people need to understand about live TV. You understand this, Ross, where you're dealing with a lot of factors. You're dealing with quick time, concise, analysis, crowd, atmosphere, weather atmosphere. All of that is going on while you're trying to talk normal and give your take. So it was fun. We had a lot of fun. I was able to get rave reviews, so it was kind of cool. I signed some autographs. I don't think those people know who I am, so I just signed something for somebody, and somebody asked me to take pictures with their kids. I was like, hey man, I'm a nobody, but I guess it was the red jacket that they like.
You are not a nobody. You are Emory Hunt. Football Game Plan on YouTube, footballgameplan.com/2021 draft guide. Blank slate, Emory. Some of the things that jumped out to you about the 2021 draft.
It was interesting, Ross, taking a 10,000 foot level view of it. This is the second year in a row where I had the same takeaway, the same feeling after this draft. Every team made very good picks, and I think it's attributed to the fact that less is more. Last year was a pandemic year. It was still in the pandemic, but last year was like initially, the pandemic, right? Everything was remote. No one could go anywhere. And teams had excellent drafts. I thought everybody knocked it out the park. This year, same sort of situation. Teams weren't able to be as mobile as they were. No pro days, no combine. Teams couldn't get out there to games. And I just felt like, man, as I'm watching the draft, like, oh, wow, that's a solid pick. That's a good pick. I rarely had a situation where I said, damn, that's a bad pick. I think the last bad pick I remember saying, audibly was the Bengals taking a kicker because it was a waste. Outside of that, I was like, even the Davis Mills pick that I didn't like, I was like, well, they have quarterback issues. It makes sense. So I thought everything was well done by every team in the league. And I think it's just a trend. Less is more. You focus on the tape. You go with your instinct based off what you watch these guys do in actual football activities and not the combine or pro days. And they end up just taking football players. And we'll talk about some teams that did a good job, but for the most part, like everyone panned the Alex Leatherwood pick. And I'm looking down in my draft guide. I had a really good grade on Alex Leatherwood. So the Raiders need offensive linemen. So I'm not going to knock them for taking someone that could step in and start and play anywhere across the front. So I just thought that everything every team did was very solid. And I think the reason is because less is more.
That's interesting about Leatherwood and the Raiders. I think the issue is, Emory, is I think they've lost the benefit of the doubt. Like, this is 3 straight years where the Raiders have taken a guy, Emory, like at least 5, usually 10 spots higher than any other mock draft had him. And I think it hasn't worked out so far with Cleveland Farrell or Damon Arnett. So they kind of lose the benefit of the doubt. If people thought Leatherwood was going round 2 and they take him at 17, and I heard Mike Mayock on NFL Network, it sounded like he wanted to try to trade down and still get Leatherwood, but nobody wanted to trade up. Yeah, that's the thing I always love when people say they should have traded down, You realize how a trade works, right? Like you need 2, it takes 2 to tango.
And 3 to jump rope.
I love that, Emory. I never heard that before. It takes 2 to tango and 3. Although one person can jump rope by themselves.
But not fun what you do in the double dutch. You know what I'm saying? You need 3 people out there, man.
Did you ever do that?
Yeah, growing up in the inner city, you have the girls outside doing double dutch, and how you think we get all this athleticism? No, you jump. The footwork is with the double dutch early.
That is funny. All right, so I do want to get your thoughts on Trey Lance to the Niners. That was, one of the major topics, one of the major things we were thinking about. What did you think of Lance to the Niners?
I thought Fields was going to go there. I knew it wasn't going to be Mac Jones. I thought it was going to be Fields. But they took Lance. And again, it's a situation where San Francisco has a plan in place. They have a starter, and they also want their succession plan in Trey Lance. And Lance gives them athleticism, gives them high upside potential, gives them the +1 in the run game, gives them the deep ball accuracy. I think he throws a deep ball very well. And so it gives someone that they can slow walk into the offense, slow walk into the situation, and into the starting role. They don't have to move Jimmy G. And, that way you throw in a guy that just started 17 games at the FCS level where they didn't throw the football a lot. You don't want to throw him out there in week 1. So I think they have a great strategy, a quarterback coach and play caller in Kyle Shanahan that understands how to put guys in the best situation to win. So I understand and like that fit, for him. If it was a situation where they expected him to be the starter right away, then I would have some questions. But that fit, like I talked about earlier, just made so much sense.
By the way, how about North Dakota State losing yesterday, Emory? I will say this. I felt like the FCS season could have gotten more buzz than it did, but kudos to them for having the games, the quarterfinals on Sunday and not Saturday during the draft. And also, I think they were all on TV. I caught several of them, and North Dakota State lost. That's one of those deals, Emory. They had an unbelievable streak going on. And if they play in the fall, there's a decent chance with Trey Lance and Dylan Redunce, the tackle, that continues. But the pandemic, they move it to the spring, and the Bison go down.
And keep in mind, why they went down, their quarterback play was inconsistent. So keep an eye on North Dakota State being in the QB transfer portal market to get one of these P5 guys to come in and step in. Because, they lost by 3 or 4, but 2 of those touchdowns came off kickoff and punt returns. So their offense was stymied by Sam Houston State, who did a great job all spring season. I agree with you. Having those games on TV, I watched all of them all throughout the day. I didn't go to sleep till like 12:30. So I was dead tired. Took a nap in between and got up and watched some more because I was like, man, this is fun to watch these guys play. All were entertaining games, weren't blowouts. So it was just, and again, it gave you a head start on the 2022 draft. Looking at some guys, let's say like Christian Watson, the wide receiver for North Dakota State, tall guy, speedster from Florida, but you got him back there returning punts and kicks, and he's breaking long, plays for touchdowns. Man, that's a guy that's going to be a draft pick. You look at the corner, Zion McCollum for Sam Houston State was locking up wide receivers, making things difficult. He's a long corner with great ball skills and athleticism. He's going to be a draft pick. So it's always about getting that early start of 2022.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's an all-CAA national championship. JMU, Delaware. I know kids on both those teams, both those programs recruited me, so we'll see if they can get it done. Sam Houston and South Dakota State are pretty darn good. You know what's not good? Losing your hair. 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35. If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, I'm raising my hand. B, I'll lean forward so you can see my bald spot. But here's the deal. It's been the same way for like 10 years. Ever since I heard about the 2 FDA-approved medications and I've been taking them, it hasn't gotten any worse. It keeps your hair. And you can get them both from Keeps, which is the key. Anybody that's already taking the topical solution and the pill in the morning, if you're not using Keeps, like, what are you doing? You don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to go to the pharmacy. You don't need a prescription. You just do it online. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/draft to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's KEEPS.com/draft to get your first month free. Keeps.com/draft. All right. Next question I got for you, Emory. Bengals taking Chase over Sewell. Your thoughts on that one?
Here's how or why I had issues with that particular pick, right? All right, let's take it back to last year. They were able to get T. Higgins at the top of the second round. So they kind of played the draft perfectly. You got your quarterback, you got a premier option that fell in T. Higgins. So it worked perfectly. It's almost like you had 2 number 1 picks. This year, they had an opportunity to do the same thing, with the 5th pick and the 36th pick, 37th pick, or whatever they had. So I thought you take, whoever your top offensive lineman was. Well, you had Penei Sewell, I had Christian Darrisaw, whoever you thought was your number 1 tackle. You take him because right there in the top of the second round, as we saw the draft play out, you can get you a very good receiver. Granted, Jamar Chase is a day 1 plug-and-play stud, but wide receiver wasn't a big need. If anything, you find someone that can, or you trade back into the bottom of the first round and get that receiver that you so coveted if you're worried about someone taking him before you pick in the second round. So I would have played the draft that way. However, in the same breath, taking Jamar Chase was excellent. But where I had issue in the second round, okay, there were some great offensive linemen that was there when they were able to choose, but they traded back a little bit, gamed the draft a little bit, traded back. Some other good offensive linemen went, and then they went ahead and took a guy that, I had as, let's say, a 3rd round type player. That's where I had the issue with the strategy. So if it would have worked out where, let's say, they went ahead and took Chase and took one of the top tier linemen, the Eichenberg or something like that, at the top of round 2 or whoever the top tackle was, the top lineman that went early in the second round, if they did it that way, no issue at all. But the fact that they traded back a little bit and got a guy that, I don't think is going to see the field this year as a starter, that's where I had issues with the strategy, not the player at the top, but more so the strategy that netted them the player in the second round.
I agree. My issue, as much as any, was trading down in the second round and getting Jackson Carman. He's a little bit of a project, and they're supposedly going to move him to guard. He's only ever played tackle. I thought they needed to get more of a known commodity along the offensive line. Even if, and I know they like their center, but even if they got like Creed Humphrey to play guard, I didn't love that selection by the Bengals at all. That one, in fact, kind of bothered me. Want to get your thoughts as well, Emory, on, do you think when the Dolphins traded back up from 12 to 6 with the Eagles, and obviously they were at 3, they trade down to 12 with the Niners, then in conjunction with that, they get back up to 6. I don't think they did that with Waddle in mind. I think they did that with Chase or Pitts in mind. I don't believe that. I mean, they gave up next year's first round pick to get Jalen Waddle, when who knows who could have still been there at 12 for them, or they could have moved up to 10 like the Eagles maybe and taken Devontae Smith. That I didn't love.
What's interesting about that, and that's a great point, because it ties into the point I want to make that I've always made when people ask me about the draft, or you can trade back or move down, you can get him at this pick and move. Bro, don't game the draft. The draft never works out how you think it's going to work out. If you have a chance to get a good player, stay pat, get a good player. You know what I'm saying? So if you're at pick 3, you get a chance to pick one of the top 3 of 5,000 players in this draft class. Top 3. You got the 3rd choice of your pick. Stay there, take somebody great. You know, you could have gotten Kyle Pitts. You could have gotten Jamar Chase. You could have gotten even more of a king's ransom had you held on to that 3rd spot until draft night, right? You know, you would have had all sorts of suitors. Desperation is a stinky cologne, and people would have been given all kind of first-round picks to get to pick 3 on draft night, right? So that's why you don't game the draft. You can take who you want, when you want, and live with the consequences. They could have had Chase or Pitts if they wanted to at 3. Could have had one or the other at 6. So that's the thing. You don't game the draft. The draft will always win. It's like the house always wins in Vegas. So that's why you don't gamble. But you will also put some shekels on our against the spread pick. So don't listen to what I just said, but always trust us when we talk about against the spread.
But we were doing that. College football be here before you know it. What do you think of Carolina taking J.C. Horn over Patrick Surtain?
I think that was one where they like a guy that is active, aggressive, and athletic. Not saying Surtain isn't, but you know, Horn is someone that you think of where he has a right mentality to play that position. He is a dog on the outside. Surtain is solid. He's good. He's steady. He's excellent. But someone like Horn, I think, provides that mindset mentality. That's just one of a bevy of great picks by Carolina. I thought they had a fantastic draft, just getting football players, guys that were good in college, that 9 times 10 will be good in the pros, and they kind of fit in. But it's going to be interesting to see because Sam Darnold has no excuses now, as I put in air quotes, because, man, this team is stacked on offense. They get a healthy Christian McCaffrey, a young defense that has a year of experience that's going to get better this year with added players on the outside. Sam Darnold has to really step in and not be the reason why they don't have a winning season.
What did you think? Another interesting pick that surprised some people, the Saints taking Peyton Turner, the DN out of Houston in the 1st round.
All right. Let me walk Saints fans off the cliff. And, you know, I like Peyton Turner. He was my number 2, 4-3 defensive end. No problem with the player. And it was funny because they drafted him, and I quickly did a screenshot of our draft guide where we threw it out there, and it was like his player count was Marcus Davenport. It's like, well, they clearly have a type, right? But what I like about Turner is that I called him chaos on wheels. This dude is an active player. I think he's what they thought they were going to get in Marcus Davenport. So that's an upgrade there. However, they're standing there with Asante Samuel standing right there, free, ready to play, ready to step in and be that corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, and you take a defensive end. And then you double down and take Pete Werner, who reminds me a lot of what they had back in 97 when they took Rob Kelly out of Ohio State. Like, that pick didn't make sense. And so, to me, the Saints had an opportunity to get significantly better at corner, and they bypass. So now you look at that depth chart, and they're already down 7-0. So they need someone. You hope Paulson Adebo can step in and be that guy. But I didn't mind Peyton Turner because I know he could play football. But him over Asante Samuel Jr., I probably would have chosen a corner because that's more of a glaring hole right now in that secondary, more so than someone like Peyton Turner, because you got depth there. Granderson is a good rusher. I know you lost Hendrickson to Cincinnati, but I thought they could have waited to go defensive end. Cornerback in this draft was they had a couple of premier options. Asante Samuel was one of them, and they missed out on him.
Peyton Turner kind of reminds me of like a DN that Parcells would like. 6'5", 270, physical, can get bigger. That pick has a lot of Jeff Ireland, 35-inch arms. Just a big dude that moves well. You don't see a lot of 270-pound DNs anymore. Most of them are 250s, maybe 260s. He's 270. He's an easy 270 too. An easy 270. So that was the thing that probably stood out to me. about Turner. I got to ask you this too. I asked Greg Cosell on the Ross Tucker podcast, Emory, but I got to ask you as a running back guy. How does Kenny Gainwell go in the 5th round? Like, what's the knock on him? So Gibson 3rd round, Pollard 4th round, Henderson 3rd round. None of them has good of numbers as Gainwell did. As a redshirt freshman, his first time playing the position. He was a quarterback in high school. And he was even splitting some time with Antonio Gibson, who, by the way, Gibson and Pollard are good in the NFL. They're not like, oh, we'll see how these guys. No, Pollard and Gibson are legit NFL running backs. And then Gainwell outproduces all 5th round. That one really surprised me.
Yeah, and it was shocking that we went all the way to day 3 and before Michael Carter got picked. And so you only had so many backs to get picked and staying in the ACC. Someone like Javian Hawkins goes undrafted. He ends up with the Falcons. But Gainwell, to me, it's funny because everyone talks about you don't take a running back high because you know it's a running back by committee approach. Well, if you live by that credo and you want someone that can play in a committee, how about you just set up shop in Memphis like you just eloquently laid out? All those backs that came out that Memphis Tigers program have played in tandem. They work well with one another. They don't need volume to be successful. And so Gainwell is your ideal fit for today's NFL game and how they handle the running game. And I was shocked that he went down there as well because you look at someone that has versatile skill set. To me, that guy goes higher. So I was shocked as well. The fact that someone was that productive coming from a system that has proven to push guys into the league that don't need volume that end up being solid pros, to have him wait. I thought that was like almost one of the big shockers in the draft, as opposed to some of these guys that didn't get drafted. I thought him going that low, considering his whole situation and makeup, kind of yielded it to go in the 3rd round. So land to the 5th was a value pick, in my opinion.
I'm surprised some of you still haven't gotten anything for the moms in your life for Mother's Day. Look, it's Sunday, dudes. Like, there's no time to wait around anymore. 1-800-Flowers.com is where it's at. Those of you that listen or watch the Ross Tucker podcast know I get it every Valentine's Day and definitely every Mother's Day. I get them from my wife, my mom, my mother-in-law, sometimes my sister, sometimes my sister-in-law, and always my wife's grandmother, her Oma. You know why? Because they love it and because they deserve it. To order last-minute Mother's Day bouquets, arrangements, and gifts, go to 100flowers.com, click the radio icon, and enter code football. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code football. I promise they will love it. Even if you do something else, in conjunction with this, they still want flowers, especially this time of year. All right, Emory, give me something else that really stood out to you about the draft. I know we'll go pick by pick with the different teams starting next week, but give me something else that jumped out to you.
How conferences did as a whole. I thought the NFC East knocked it out the park. I thought the AFC West knocked it out the park. So I thought those two conferences did a really good job. And also how Pittsburgh and Baltimore just continue to win at the draft. You know, Pittsburgh, I feel like the Steelers just filled out their card already and turned it in. It was like, here, these are our picks. And the draft always falls to where they get those players. You let the Steelers get Najee Harris, and Pat Freiermuth. How do you allow that to happen? You let them get Le'Veon Bell and Heath Miller all over again. You let Baltimore get 2 solid receivers in Tylan Wallace and also Rashad Bateman, and also some work-withable guys that are edge rushers that have upside. Those two teams, I always feel like, fill out their card pre-draft, hand it to the commissioner, and just wait because they know those guys will be there for them, and they go always get their guy. So I always love what the Ravens and Steelers do in the draft. Ben Cleveland, too, is your central casting Baltimore Raven interior lineman. Like, how do you let the Ravens and Steelers consistently get good players?
Well, it really is crazy that you say it like that because the Ravens have a great draft every year. Every year, the Ravens, first of all, they get a ton of picks every year because they get the comp picks. Secondly, they get so many good players. But the Steelers, Emory, there were a lot of like those 3-round mock drafts that people do, whatever, 2 or 3-round mock drafts. There were a lot of them that had Najee Harris round 1, Freiermuth round 2. Like, and you think that, that'll never happen because something else, somebody will jump in front of them. No, they just sat there. A lot of people thought they were going to take Najee Harris, like everybody. And a lot of people thought they were going to take Freiermuth. They don't care.
How does that happen? And again, and so I tweeted out the joke that, Mike Tomlin, is probably in the office playing Gallagher on mute. Ain't even paying attention to the draft, just enjoying himself because he already turned the card in and is like, yeah, Najee Harris is our pick. And Freiermuth is someone that it's almost like when you watch these guys in college, you're watching them already in the Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. And it's like, man, these dudes consistently find ways to do things. And then you let the Steelers get Quincy Roche, a talented pass rusher. You get him in what, the 5th or 6th round? Man, it's like James Harrison all over again. It's like, so you just get all of these good football players, and then we'll be sitting here in week 7 like, man, how do Steelers get all these good players? How do they let this guy slide? And it's like Pittsburgh, they already have their 2022 draft card filled out already.
Yeah, I like Kendrick Green, the center guard from Illinois. I even like Isaiah McCoy, the receiver from Kent State that they got as an undrafted guy. Yes. They clean up on those MAC receivers. Deontay Johnson, Antonio Brown. People are never going to learn. If the Steelers like a MAC receiver, you should like the MAC receiver. I mean, gosh. Anyway, awesome stuff. I cannot wait. Starting next week, really for the next 8 weeks, it'll be May and June. Emory and I are going to go division by division, and we're going to talk about what these teams did. We're talking about what your team did. We might as well, right? Then we got after that, we got July and August to get you ready for college football. Then we'll start to talk about the biggest games, the best players, and pick them against the spread. Check out Emory Football Game Plan on YouTube, and of course, at F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. And we're done. The keg is kicked. We're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.